so I think I can come up with a few things to talk about. I don't want to go on too long today. I was wondering if very many of you knew how it is that Lucinda came to work for Miami University, because it's kind of a neat story. And you could say that it comes down to Swiss chocolate almond ice cream, or probably really it comes more to her exemplary ability to take care of customers. Because Lucinda was an assistant manager at the Friendly's Ice Cream Parlor. Some of you are nodding. It was on the west side of Hamilton, there near where Frisch's is. And Lucinda had a customer by the name of Jerry Burkhouse. But she didn't know it was Jerry Burkhouse, and she didn't know he had any connection to Miami University. She just knew him as a regular who came in. At that time, Jerry's elderly mother, he had moved her here from Pennsylvania, and she was in an extended care facility on the west side of Hamilton, and they would stop in at Friendly's and get ice cream cones. And some of you in the room know Jerry, and Jerry could be pretty particular about things, and one of his favorite flavors was Swiss chocolate almond. And not only did Jerry like to have a cone, but he liked to take a container of ice cream home to his family. And how they did it at that time at Friendly's was they had the dipping area, and then they also had the pre-packaged, probably quarts and half gallons that were made back at the plant, right, Lucinda, and pre-packaged, so you didn't have to dip those up. But on this particular day, Jerry came in, and the plant had not sent over enough enough of the Swiss chocolate almond, and Lucinda, though, had it in the big 3-gallon containers, and as the assistant manager, she took it on to dip or scoop him up and pack a half-gallon of this. And normally, when you buy the ice cream by the scoop, you got to pay about twice the price as buying it the other way. And believe me, Jerry, he knew the value of a penny, and he wasn't going to pay any more than that half price. But Lucinda was pretty shrewd, because she got him, rather than give him the half price on that stuff, she got him to take twice as much for the price of one. So she had to hand pack 2 of these babies, but she did it. And she had an interesting enough and a little bit unusual name, of course, and somehow that registered with Jerry off her name tag. And a few weeks later, he was looking through applications for assistant food service manager, and up popped that name. And Lucinda had an in because he thought that she represented the kind of service he wanted to see here in the operations. And so what happened was on August 9th of 1982, Lucinda began working here, and in the department, of course, that Jerry oversaw at that time, the residence and dining halls. And Lucinda began a Kraken hall, and she worked in a number of halls and got some promotions along the way. And many people who know her now and think of her in her role don't really know that first half of her career. But really, for the first 14 years of a 30-year career, Lucinda was in the food service business, and she was a manager for a long time at Hamilton and at Alexander dining halls, and that was a period of a lot of change in the food services as we started into retail and changing menus between locations and takeout, and the meal plans were beginning to change a little bit as well. I look back through her file, and it's filled with accolades and all of our annual performance reviews. If there's one thing we do in the Department of Housing, Dining, Recreation, Business Services, we do annual performance reviews. So Lucinda's got about that many, and you would not be surprised to know that they're very, very good. And there's very little advice, maybe a little here and there, but most of it is appreciative comments. But what happened was in 1996, there was a change and an initiative to combine the housing office with the meal plan office and bring it together in this department. And Lucinda was a person who we looked at and thought she could transition very nicely, that the things that she was appreciated for all the things she did in the food service, from, yes, having high sanitation scores to doing a great job with the quality of the food and supervising a staff. Those other elements that involved handling people, whether they were staff members or whether they were students with issues, because students do occasionally have issues with food service, as we know. She was so good at that that some folks had the idea that she might be a person to talk about as a candidate. And she became a candidate, and she was chosen to head up an office and really had to build it up from the bottom and get a staff together and take this responsibility for all of these housing contracts and in some ways represent both the Student Affairs Division in some ways and of course our own Business and Finance Division with our 35 residence halls and 108 apartments and 7,200 students on campus and many students on meal plans and such. And that's exactly what Lucinda began to do. She represented us in ways that pressed her like I couldn't imagine a person being pressed, because I would often sit with her or come into her office when she was taking all those phone calls and dealing with all the dilemmas that came from that kind of business. Such a patient person and so comforting to parents and good leadership of her office. And mostly she had a certain empathy that is difficult for some of us to have when we're dealing over and over with difficult situations and we lose track of the people. And she did not lose track of the people. And she has stayed, of course, engaged to the end. She's had lots of tough people to deal with, bullying. I can't tell you how many times people who are lawyers have called Lucinda on behalf of their student, or if they aren't a lawyer themselves, they should refer to one often enough. And VIPs and famous people. She's been through the issues of the consolidation now with event ticketing, and prior to that, the decision to have the second year live-on requirement, and prior to that, taking on ID cards. And she's been through a time when we didn't have full residence halls, which was the case in like '96 when she began. She gets a few rewards. Occasionally, she gets actually lots of thank you emails, and she has lots of thank you letters in her file. I asked her the other day, what are some of the more interesting things that have come through into the office via probably the mail or UPS, and she said she had to think about it a little bit. And she said, well, we've gotten jewelry and chocolates and an umbrella once from somebody, and a bottle of whiskey. I thought that was interesting. She said, so occasionally they do get some special rewards. She's had plenty of awards. In this department, there are 3 big ones, and she's gotten all of them. I don't think anyone else has gotten all 3. One is the Pride in Service Award, the Management Award of Distinction, and the Innovative Leadership Award. So Lucinda has been recognized, and certainly for good reason. She's had to balance unhappy students with their own obligations and responsibilities with contracts. She had to be confidential on sensitive issues where she did need to have dialogue with other people. And in a way, she's had to, at times, act as if she, of course, represented the business side and only the business thoughts of contracts and dollars and budgets. She has to annually prepare a part of the budget, put together the various kinds of meal plans that are expected and the various combinations of housing arrangements. But she's had to balance that business side with many anxious students and parents and comforting them, and represent the more than just the fact that yes, they have a contract with us. Assigning students to rooms, it's no easy thing, and in many cases it's almost one at a time for students and parents who are very interested in exactly what kind of experience their student gets. And they often think that's very dependent on what residence hall they're in and what room they're in. I looked through those performance reviews, I looked through the letters. I could have brought a stack a couple of inches thick. We'll have to give them to you, Lucinda. I don't know what the rules are of giving you things out of your own personnel file when you retire, but I would think we could copy them and give them to you because they're all about you. And someday maybe your grandchildren would enjoy reading all the wonderful things said. You're a strong role model for others across the university. There's lots of redundancy, and it's all good stuff. Widely regarded as an expert in your area of responsibility, the patience and empathy to be an effective problem solver. So responsive to comments and suggestions, and the ability to handle so many parents and their wide-ranging issues. I asked Lucinda what some of the more special memories will be, and I saw Andy Zeisler walk in. I don't know where Andy went, but she brought that out. Where's Andy? Right here, Andy. I think the work that she's done with you, and I know you shared this recently in the email, is so heartwarming, working with students with disabilities and making it a good experience for them. I know we have a quadriplegic here right now, and it takes a tremendous amount of work to make it possible for that person to get through our campus and have access to the kinds of things needed. So that's something that she told me will stay with her forever, as will just listening and hearing a person out, and from that getting the clues to solve their problem. She's done so much of that she'll remember many of those situations. The camaraderie and teamwork in the office, and it is that kind of office. And I know it's a great team, and it's had to be over the years, even as a few of the players in the team have changed. It's always been one of camaraderie where everybody pitches in. Great problem solving. And Lucinda told me that the sense of accomplishment is something that will stay with her and always made it worth it. And she made the comment, I like it when all the parent concerns are met and when all the students are tucked in. I thought that represents the way that she looks at things. Lucinda is joined today by her husband, Rob, who retired in 2009. Got all dressed up today in a suit and tie. Probably the first time for a while. He was told to. And Rob and Lucinda have 3 children. They weren't able to make it today, but Scarlett and Andrew and Tyler. And they are blessed with 3 grandchildren as well, Savannah, who's 7, and Blake, who's 5, and little Bryce, who's 6 months. I asked Lucinda what kinds of things she was going to be doing. I kind of knew the answers just from her talking about it in the past, but soccer games to go to, and football games, and camping. Some of you know that Lucinda and Rob live on Lochengrin, and they've got a house right on the water, so boating and water sports is a part of their life. I was interested to hear a few weeks ago, I know they're camping people, and I'm a little bit that way with my wife too, and so I've been down the road of the various ways of going about that. And I knew they had an RV at one point, but that can be a lot of work and maintenance and issues too. But I was interested to find that they bought a pop-up camper, and Lucinda admits that it's a bit of nostalgia there because growing up she had a pop-up camper. But it's a really nice pop-up camper, and they're excited about that. And I think you're taking, is it really your inaugural trip? Taking a trip here to Natural Bridge, Virginia, and going to enjoy their trailer. And I imagine, if not on this trip, the children and grandchildren are involved many times. Lucinda, I think when we last spoke, you thought you might get up and say a few words. Are you so inclined? Great. Please give a warm round of applause for Lucinda Coleman.
Thank you very much for all your kind remarks, Pete. I really appreciate it. It's just been a great source of pride for me to have had such a long and successful career here at Miami University. I've really loved my work, and it's been just incredibly fulfilling and rewarding. I appreciate all of the great relationships that I've developed over the years, all the friendship and camaraderie and the teamwork that's occurred. And I will just miss all of you very much, and I thank you all for being here.